Oh my gosh, there are just 12 days left. 12 days left until Election Day, and I've got a great conversation with Maura Quint, another Pennsylvania lady on the show, 2 in a row. Miranda Yaver was yesterday, Maura Quint today. Dana Goldberg and Jon Carroll are going to join me this week as well, and I'm very excited to have you here. So if you want to skip ahead to my conversation with Maura, it starts at 27 minutes. But as always, I've got your headlines and clips from the last 24 hours. A lot happened, as it seems to every day. The closer we get to Election Day, the crazier it seems to be, the higher the stakes, the more nerve-wracking all of it is, and I am here with you each and every day. Thank you to Michelle London, who sent this message yesterday to me about us and the show and our community. She said, "There's strength in numbers, Pete. You've brought a lot of members together. I feel calmer every day knowing you and your fan bases out there lifting each other up. When I hear your voice, I hear a friend. And when I attend the Zoom meetings, I hear a lot of friends. Thank you for bringing us together." Michelle, very sweet. I hope to see you and all of our friends at tonight's Hangout. We'll have some candidates stopping by, thanks to Jim Babowski, who works real hard to get these folks elected. And I can't wait to see you guys tonight. If you are a paid subscriber, you'll be getting a link. If you're not, sign up now and join us at our Hangouts. It's really comforting, inspiring, rejuvenating, no matter what is happening in the world or in your life. It's always a great elixir to hang out with friends. 8 p.m. East tonight. I hope to see you there. All right, now let's get to the headlines from yesterday, starting with the Middle East, where the Biden administration announced it's open to the possibility of new ways to stop the fighting in Gaza and free hostages there. U.S. officials said this yesterday just before departing Tel Aviv on Wednesday morning. The Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, told reporters that he discussed new options in the Tuesday meeting with the families of Israeli hostages held in Gaza. And in a related story, as Israel escalates its offensive in Lebanon, where it has killed dozens of Hezbollah members, including its top leaders, Secretary of State Blinken said it was absolutely critical that the warring parties move back from the border between the two nations and that, quote, "we can create an environment which people on both sides of the border can return to their homes in peace and security." Also yesterday, we got confirmation that North Korea has in fact sent troops to Russia. It's the first public confirmation of a move from the U.S. government. It's rattled Western allies, could mark a major escalation in Moscow's war in Ukraine. And speaking of the war in Ukraine, the group of 7 nations will announced yesterday a finalized plan to give Ukraine a $50 billion loan using Russia's frozen central bank assets. According to Biden administration officials, the loan represents an extraordinary maneuver by Western nations to essentially force Russia to pay for the damage it's inflicting on Ukraine through a war that shows no sign of ending. All right, let's come back home and head to Arizona, where Tempe police have arrested a guy in connection with the shooting at 3 Democratic Party offices in Tempe and leaving bags of white powder on political signs in a Tempe suburb. The man, 60 years old, his name is Jeffrey Michael Kelly, was charged with 7 felony counts and 3 misdemeanor counts related to the shootings, including terrorism and an unlawful discharge, according to the Tempe police. Now, here's some good news. Yesterday, the Biden administration announced the finalized version of a federal rule tightening standards for exposure to lead paint dust. I can't wait until Republicans try to fight against it. More lead paint dust, please. And more good news. After weeks of delays due to inclement weather, 3 astronauts and a cosmonaut are finally set to leave the International Space Station on Wednesday, wrapping up an almost 8-month stint in orbit. What else do I have? Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was urged to resign by members of his own party during a closed-door meeting. I don't know what is going on with that. I just started hearing about that. Come on, Canadian listeners, explain it to me. Or maybe I'll just look it up. It's my job anyway. Kamala Harris held a town hall on CNN last night. The Justice Department is warning Elon Musk over pro-Trump giveaways and investigating to see if there's any crimes being committed, apparently. Los Angeles Times editorials editor resigned after the billionaire owner of the Los Angeles Times refused to allow them to endorse Kamala Harris or anyone. That was pretty big news yesterday. And Boeing workers are voting on whether to end their strike. Those are all the headlines without some of the major political headlines from yesterday that I feel like you've already heard about and are overcovered, where many of the headlines that I mentioned in this opening segment are often undercovered as a result of them being crowded out by presidential campaign stuff, which you probably are hearing about. Okay, that's what I've got for you in terms of headlines. And now it's time to play the sound I have gathered for you in what I'm calling this week, at least, Clark's Clips, because Clark is the first listener to reach out and specifically tell me how much he loves this part of the opening and the clips. Also heard yesterday from Michelle, who said, I too love the clips. Appreciate all the work you do to provide them. Sometimes you have things I haven't even heard anywhere else. Well, there you go. That's Michelle from Canada. So thank you for the endorsements. Let's see. Let's start with Kamala Harris yesterday. She spoke to reporters the day after the New York Times published these audio recordings of General Jon Kelly, who served under the disgraced former president as his chief of staff, saying President praised Nazi dictator Hitler. Kamala Harris' remarks were delivered as a warning of Trump's character. She called the ex-president incredibly dangerous. And here is the full 3 minutes now.
So yesterday we learned that Donald Trump's former chief of staff, Jon Kelly, a retired four-star general, confirmed that while Donald Trump was president, he said he wanted generals like Adolf Hitler had. Donald Trump said that because he does not want a military that is loyal to the United States Constitution. He wants a military that is loyal to him. He wants a military who will be loyal to him personally, one that will obey his orders even when he tells them to break the law or abandon their oath to the Constitution of the United States. In just the past week, Donald Trump has repeatedly called his fellow Americans the enemy from within, and even said that he would use the United States military to go after American citizens. And let's be clear about who he considers to be the enemy from within. Anyone who refuses to bend a knee or dares to criticize him would qualify, in his mind, as the enemy within, like judges, like journalists, like nonpartisan election officials. It is deeply troubling and incredibly dangerous that Donald Trump would invoke Adolf Hitler, the man who is responsible for the deaths of 6 million Jews and hundreds of thousands of Americans. All of this is further evidence for the American people of who Donald Trump really is. This is a window into who Donald Trump really is, from the people who know him best, from the people who worked with him side by side in the Oval Office and in the Situation Room. And it is clear from Jon Kelly's words that Donald Trump is someone who, I quote, certainly falls into the general definition of fascist, who in fact vowed to be a dictator on day one and vowed to use the military as his personal militia to carry out his personal and political vendettas. Donald Trump is increasingly unhinged and unstable. And in a second term, people like Jon Kelly would not be there to be the guardrails against his propensities and his actions. Those who once tried to stop him from pursuing his worst impulses would no longer be there, and no longer be there to rein him in. So the bottom line is this. We know what Donald Trump wants. He wants unchecked power. The question in 13 days will be, what do the American people want? Thank you.
Well done, Madam Vice President. 12 days now, 12 days. That, of course, was delivered yesterday. And Kamala Harris last night was asked on the CNN town hall point blank if she thinks the disgraced former guy, is a fascist.
He who has openly admired dictators said he would be a dictator on day one. The former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff has said he is a fascist to the core. So I think that when the American people reflect, especially those who are undecided, on who you should listen to, don't take my word for it. In fact, go online and listen to Jon Kelly, his voice, talking about what he thinks of Donald Trump 2 weeks before the election, because I think we all know, to your point, Anderson, it is close, but there are undecided voters who clearly, by being here, have an open mind, want to talk in a way that is grounded in issues and fact. And when they hear these facts, I think it compels a lot of people to be concerned about the future of our country with Donald Trump at the lead.
You've quoted General Milley calling Donald Trump a fascist. You yourself have not used that word to describe him. Let me ask you tonight, do you think Donald Trump is a fascist?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And I also believe that the people who know him best on this subject should be trusted. Again, look at their careers. These are not people, with the exception, I think, of only Mike Pence. These were not politicians. These are career people who have served in the highest roles in national security, who have served as generals in our military, who are highly respected. Talking about the person who would be commander-in-chief.
All right, let me give you one more great answer and moment from last night's CNN town hall, where everybody's saying she did a pretty good job, great job, in fact, which is not surprising because she's always great in these types of settings.
Understand that, again, in 13 days, the American people will decide who is the next president of the United States. In 13 days, you will decide who is sitting in the Oval Office on January 20th. And on one hand, you have in Donald Trump someone who has increasingly proved himself to be unstable and who, as we have established and the people close to him have established, he is unfit to serve. Somebody who, on January 20th, you can be sure, will spend full time, like we know, and we've seen the image mentally of him sitting in the dining room off of the Oval Office, watching for hours as people violently attack the Capitol. You can be sure, because he has said he would weaponize the Department of Justice to go after his political enemies, that you can look at a Donald Trump in the White House after January 20th, sitting in that Oval Office, plotting his revenge. He has talked about the enemies within. We haven't even raised that subject, Anderson. The enemies within. He's talking about the American people. He's talking about journalists, judges, nonpartisan election officials. He has talked about, as Jon Kelly has talked about, can he send the military after peaceful protesters? And he's going to sit there unstable, unhinged, plotting his revenge, plotting his retribution, creating an enemies list. I'm going to tell you, my list will be a list of how I address and continue to address the issues that you all are raising this afternoon and evening. It will be a to-do list about how we can impact the American people and lift up the American people and address some of the challenges that we continue to face.
All right, there you go. Good stuff. And now here is about 4 minutes of my entire appearance on Australian television's Today Show Extra yesterday, co-anchored by my best friend, David Campbell. So it's always a real treat when I get to come on and talk with them, as I do all kinds of different networks. And this is always the best. So they, of course, wanted me to come on to talk about the news that Trump praised Hitler and everything we learned and pretty much already knew from his former chief of staff, Jon Kelly. So here is that. I thought it went pretty well, and so I wanted to share this segment with you. Imagine going on national television with your very best friend. Always a lot of fun.
For the latest, let's bring in US political commentator Pete Dominic in New York. Hey, Pete.
Yo.
So you've got Eminem joined celebrities like Lizzo, Megan Thee Stallion, Stevie Wonder in supporting Kamala Harris. How important are these high-profile endorsements?
They're hugely important because they also correspond to the places those artists are from. Often Eminem is Detroit's favorite son. And as you guys know, he's one of the greatest hip hop artists of, well, ever. And, Trump has a big Detroit musician supporter too, but it's Kid Rock. So he's not nearly as impactful, but it doesn't hurt. And so these celebrities they help bring people to those arenas just to be seen. And while they're there, we get them to register to vote, Belinda and Cam.
Yeah, it's all about getting the vote out there. Well, let's move on to President Trump, who his former chief of staff, a general, has made some scathing comments about him in the New York Times because apparently Trump was a big fan of the old Hitler.
I mean, I can't believe we're in the timeline where you just said that. Mm-hmm. And it's true. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's absolutely true. You can trust the Marine, who was a 4-star general who lost his own son in the Afghanistan war. That's Jon Kelly, Trump's second chief of staff and his first Homeland Security secretary, who said that comment and a whole lot more, you guys. It is blockbuster news over here. Trump was always fond of, and there's so much more evidence. He used to have Hitler's speeches by his nightstand, according to one very credible journalist who wrote a whole book about this, the Washington Post. He has been a huge fan of dictators and authoritarians, and of course he wanted his generals to be like Hitler's generals, and his chief of staff had to tell him Hitler's generals were Nazis.
I kind of want to touch on this a little bit, because I think for Australians, we just played him serving fries this week and being all cutesy Donald, or we see him dancing on stage for 40 minutes because he doesn't want to answer any more questions. But then this stuff happens too, and it's that real swing that he seems to have over media and his people. He can't be, I guess the word is cancelled, any other candidate would be done by now.
Well, I don't like complimenting how great of an opinion I think that is, Campbell, of yours, because I'm giving you credit. But you're right. You're absolutely right. And that's exactly what's happening. But I think it's really important that people realize that it's not like liberals or Democrats or Harris supporters saying this. Jon Kelly said in that interview, Jon Kelly, the former chief of staff, the man who was closest to the former president and a military leader himself who lost his own son, he said, not some liberal, Jon Kelly said that Donald Trump was probably the greatest threat. He was asked by the New York Times reporter. So that's Jon Kelly's opinion. He's an extremely dangerous man. More and more military experts and authoritarian and historian experts have called him a fascist for years. That's what we're dealing with here. It's very dangerous times. We're pretty scared.
Yeah, will it make an impact? So Trump is currently rallying in Georgia, Obama's in Michigan, and Kamala's headed to Pennsylvania. How big a role will these states play in deciding the next president of the United States?
Unfortunately, with our stupid, ridiculous, awful, racist electoral college system, Belinda, that's the main question. Those are the most important states. Those states are all key. In the last election, President Biden won by only 40,000 votes across Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. They're going to matter so much, those states, because of the ridiculous system that we have. I mean, the Democrat always wins more votes than the Republican in every recent election in America, except for 2004, I believe, when Bush won carry. It's called the popular vote. But that's not how our system works, because our system is dumb, according to a vast majority of Americans and scholars.
Yeah, and it's not going to change anytime soon before this next election. Pete Dominic, we love you, buddy. Good to see you.
Thanks, Pete.
Do either of you have a guest room, a guest bed, a cot, a place where someone could stay if they wanted to?
We're thinking we can make a lot of money with a lot of Americans coming down under here.
Yeah, for a good price, Pete.
See you, buddy.
Thank you. All right, ahead on Today Extra.
Thanks so much, Pete. Really appreciate it.
Warning to workers.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like when you're on TV. The producer gets in your ear and is like, okay, bye, thanks. All right. Always fun. I hope you appreciated that like that. I love doing it. And now I want to play for you a clip, a montage of Trump's former advisors, secretaries, and more. You'll recognize, I think, most of the voices in this if you're a political junkie like me, and you probably are if you're listening to this show. Here they are, just denouncing and trashing the guy they once worked for.
I think he's unfit for the presidency.
Tillerson called the president a moron after a July national security meeting.
Donald Trump and J.D. Vance cannot be trusted with the Constitution.
I think it's important for people to understand that they are rolling the dice on a second Trump term.
He's so egotistical that he has this penchant for conducting, risky, reckless acts to show that he can sort of get away with it.
President Trump asked me to put him over the Constitution, but I chose the Constitution.
We don't take an oath to a king or a queen or a tyrant or a dictator. And we don't take an oath to a wannabe dictator.
I always like to hear that last one from Mark Milley, the former chief of staff, joint chief of staff. Now let's go to Trump's Secretary of Defense. It was Mark Esper. He was on CNN yesterday and weighed in more specifically.
Of course, the incidents I recall is that he was very troubled by the fact that we would have America's wounded warriors out in public, and he did not like that. And I had a couple instances where we'd have to have that discussion, and he would he just thought we should conceal them. And our view was, my view, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, was that these were America's heroes, and it was important to show the American people and their colleagues, by the way, in the service, that when our heroes come home wounded, that we take care of them and that we will be with them all the time. And they weren't something to hide in the closet, but in many ways something to hoist up and to celebrate as, again, people who served our country, who gave all for our nation.
Well, there you go. Mark Esper, and so many of his other cabinet secretaries and people who work closely with him, denouncing him, still doesn't break the fever of the MAGA cult, but it can't hurt. It can't hurt for those who aren't fully bought into it, I guess. Now let's go to the CNN data guy. It's Harry Enton, who's on with Aaron Burnett, and he said he doesn't understand why there's a Democratic panic out there right now over Kamala Harris's polls. So, yeah, I'll take debate on that.
You know, it's one of these funny things. Depending on which week, I get different friends from different sides of the aisle coming back to me. One week it's the Republicans worrying. This week it was the Democrats that were worrying. But then you look at polling like that, and then we take a look at the race to 270. And I should point out, the race to 270, the path to 270 for Kamala Harris is very clear right now. You know, you talk about Wisconsin. Let's turn that blue. All right, that gets Harris to 236 electoral votes. How about Michigan? We'll give her blue there. 251 electoral votes. How about Pennsylvania? Look at this. To 270 electoral votes if those Washington Post polls are in fact correct. And so she has a very clear path to 270 electoral votes. Of course, Aaron, I don't just like looking at one poll. I like to look at an aggregate of polling. So let's take a look at the recent aggregate of polls in these blue wall states. Now, what do we see? We see very close contests. It's actually closer than the Washington Post polls. But again, less than a point lead for Harris in Wisconsin, less than a point lead in Michigan, less than a point lead in Pennsylvania. But the bottom line is Kamala Harris, based upon these polling data, both from the Washington Post and in the averages, has a very clear path at this particular point, just based upon those states, to 270 electoral votes. The bottom line is I don't understand the Democratic panic right now because the path is clear.
It's clear and just.
Well, we're panicked because we know exactly what the consequences are. So we're always going to be panicked. But that does feel good. I do appreciate hearing that data from CNN data guru Harry Enton yesterday. All right, I like this clip from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Congresswoman who was in Philadelphia yesterday, making fun of Donald Trump for his McDonald's gimmick.
Donald Trump is running around. He put on his little McDonald's costume. Halloween came early for Donald Trump. Because we know that man's never worked a day in his life. We know that man's never punched a clock in his life. He's never wiped down a table in his life. He's never had to fix his own car. He's never struggled to make ends meet. He does not know what it means to check your paycheck every week and see what you've got left.
All right, there you go. Those are all the serious clips, but I like to give you a daily dose of comedy. And Jon Stewart, hosting The Daily Show on Monday night, had this to say.
It's just 2 weeks until the election, and I'm going to say this. I don't like it. We've officially entered into the fever dream portion of the campaign. Right is left, up is down. The Republican nominee is hanging out in a Bronx barbershop. And the Democratic nominee is hosting some sort of book club with Liz Cheney. What the f***? That's a Cheney. What are you doing with a Cheney? You're not allowed to hang out with a Cheney. They're Marvel. You're DC. You can't be in the same movie. It's a rights issue. And no one likes them. And here's the worst part. The Cheneys have somehow synced up their circuitry directly to the Madam Vice President. Like, right at the same time they cross their legs. They move as one. It is so surreal. This campaign cannot get any weirder.
Hello, everybody. Sir. My first day at McDonald's. I'm looking for a job. So, if you don't mind, I want to work the French fry counter.
Give him the job. I implore you. I don't care if his references don't shake out. Save democracy, give him the job. Now, Kamala Harris is out there sweating the details over her new opportunity economy. Trump's just out there farting around.
I love salt. Wait a minute, I spilled some. I'm very superstitious. You take it for granted. You say, give me French fries. I'll never forget this experience. I always figured somebody stuffs them in with their hand, and I don't like that. and they don't do it that way. You never touch them. It's really great.
You Forrest Gump? What are we talking about here? For decades that you've been eating at McDonald's, you thought the fries come out of the boiling oil. And the workers making that sweet, sweet $4.25 an hour just reach in and go, ah! Ah! Just with their hands. Well, you think that's how the burgers get flipped? Ah! Oh, God, someone order ice cream. Oh! That's his whole campaign right now. Ave Maria dance party. I'm going to deport everybody. Football, tailgate, blame the Jews if I lose. McDonald's drive-thru. He's out there having the time of his life. And the poor, sweet media. Oh, poor, sweet media. They know they're mad. They're just not exactly sure which thing they should be maddest about anymore. But I can tell you one thing, media, it probably shouldn't be the McDonald's thing.
This was entirely staged. There was a fake customer, yes. He is so inept at pretending to be a real person that he really, literally cannot operate the fry machine as a normal worker because he would be incapable of doing so.
What a pleasant counterpoint. Look, I'm all for criticizing Donald Trump, but I got to tell you, I also don't know how to work the fryer at McDonald's. And would be incapable of doing so.
All right, there you go. Enough jokes, enough messing around. Now it's time to have some fun with Maura Quint, who we absolutely love. You can find her on Blue Sky, on TikTok, on Instagram, and of course on Twitter, though she's not there much anymore. Read her at McSweeney's. She is so great. And of course, she is campaign director at Americans for Tax Fairness. She lives in Pennsylvania, just outside Harrisburg, and so a great person to talk to about Pittsburgh, or rather about Pennsylvania. Talked with Miranda Yaver about the Pittsburgh area yesterday. So it's always a great conversation with Maura. She's one of my closest friends. We love her and always happy to have her on to balance out that all-dude party I had last week. Here we go. Let's do it right now with the brilliant, hilarious, awesome Maura Quint. There she is. I've got her back. Maura Quint is joining me. You asked, you got. Thank you. People.
Who asked?
People.
People. Oh, wow. Hi, people.
Last week I had a bunch of dudes.
Uh-huh.
And mostly all dudes.
Ugh. Come on, Pete.
And
no one wants to hear from dudes.
Exactly. So yeah. I'm glad to have you here. I want to hear from you. I want to hear what your thoughts are on everything, as always.
I'll try and have some quickly.
Let's just talk Pennsylvania. You're in Pennsylvania.
I am. It's true.
What are you doing? What can people do? I know you're writing postcards. I see that.
That wasn't me writing a postcard. I was showing you that I received a postcard because I'm in a swing state. And so I received a postcard from somebody who wrote one to me who it looks like they're in Colorado, which it was nice. I liked it. I was like, obviously I'm someone who is going to be voting. I'm doing all sorts of volunteering. I don't need a postcard from a blue state saying, to remind me. But I did really appreciate it because it was a very much like right. So many people are counting on us here. It was like a motivating, she wrote this postcard, this woman, Kathy, she got out a pen, she wrote it to me, she put it in the mail because she cares so much and she can't be on the ground here. And I need to go knock on more doors for Kathy, who sent me this postcard. That's how it felt. I should
probably let you know I'm Kathy.
Your handwriting is not this nice.
So do you feel pressure being in this state? And people are saying if you had to pick one state that's the most crucial, it would be your state of Pennsylvania. Does that make you feel like you can't relax or that you have to do more in terms of convincing everybody no or doing whatever you can?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, I feel a tremendous amount of pressure because I'm not even just in Pennsylvania. I'm in the worrying part of Pennsylvania. I'm in that purpley area. So I'm not even over in Philly, which is not me dismissing the work that anyone's doing in Philly. It's incredibly important, but that is going to likely go blue because Philly does. I'm in the area where I don't know what color will be at the end. And it feels a lot of pressure.
With the time remaining in that area that's purpley, or what do you think is the best thing to be doing? I mean, I just feel like everybody is you in terms of everybody being inundated. Even people who are politically active and motivated as you are getting postcards and getting phone calls from people like me who are trying to save democracy in your state. So there's an election, I'm guessing, if you live in Pennsylvania, and you probably know who you're going to vote for. So what remains other than making sure people vote and vote early maybe?
Yeah, it's definitely a get out the vote situation. Everyone is like us. I think you and I, Pete, in particular, have a very clear view of what needs to happen. There are a lot of people who are not as plugged in, who don't have as straightforward a perspective, and who are hearing from a lot of competing forces around them. So I think it's easy at this point to check out from democracy. It's easy to say it doesn't matter. Who cares? It's not going to fucking help me either way. And I don't like either of them. I think that kind of an attitude can be a bit pervasive, not persuasive, wrong one. So to me, it's like trying to get through to some of those people who maybe weren't really going to take some time off work to go vote on a Tuesday, who they're juggling too many things, whatever, it's not a big deal. And trying to maybe nudge some of those people, and then also help people make plans for how they're going to vote. Because I live in a very residential area. There is a nursing home right next to me. How are those people getting to the polls? Did they vote early? Did they there's a lot of that sort of thing as well. Can I help get any of these people who maybe have some transportation concerns? Can I help get them to the polls? It's a lot of that sort of local coordination stuff, I think.
Have you thought about hanging out outside that nursing home in a slinky dress just to get men attention?
Where are we going with this? Yeah.
Turn them into votes. Maybe women too.
Interesting. I think you have far more faith in my abilities in a slinky dress, but no, I don't have any expectation of hanging out outside the nursing home because I don't smoke, and everyone who hangs out there smokes quite a lot.
That'd be is there a smoking section at nursing homes? I think that'd be real.
It's mostly the nurses, honestly.
Yeah. Maybe I should hang out in a slinky dress outside of a nursing home.
Now that I think we get some attention. Yeah.
I mean, at this point, yeah, but I mean, I'm reaching for things that can be done in the remaining time that work in Pennsylvania, Michigan, or elsewhere to get people out to vote in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, we're all looking for the magic bullet and there isn't one. That's the frustrating thing. This is exactly like most political situations where it's like every drop of water matters. Every tiny little thing matters. And you're not going to see any return on any of it. You're not going to feel like, hell yeah, I changed that's 5 more votes. Or you're not going to have any real understanding of the impact. And you just have to run at everything at the same time as much as you can, because it does matter. It does build, and you don't necessarily know how. So you do everything you can think to do. I purchased online these Post-it notes. Now, I've read a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of conversation about the autonomy of women in abusive situations. And there's a big discussion happening around that I've read, and I'm not trying to wade into any of that. But these are Post-it notes that are basically like, hey, reminder, no one will know who you voted for. It isn't. It is not.
We're talking about abusive situations. Just to be clear, that there are women who would be afraid that if they cast a vote that isn't for Donald Trump, their partners or husbands or boyfriends would be abusive, berate them.
Yeah, there are definitely, without question, individuals in controlling households who are being told they have to vote a certain way.
Right.
And so these are Post-its to put up in women's rooms, just being like, no one will ever know who you can vote for who you want. And now, do I think a single Post-it note is going to take a person who is living in a situation where they are in fear of their partner and change that vote? Probably not. But, it's a drop of water.
I love the strategy. Are the Post-it notes meant for women's spaces, women's bathrooms, et cetera?
Yeah, specifically to put up in women's bathrooms. Yeah.
Do you think how does a woman know to vote if a man doesn't tell them?
You told me, right? So I don't know. You tell me how. I'm just waiting to hear.
I told you how to vote on the most local race in your district just to try to control you on library trustees. And you were like, yes, sir, which I felt really powerful. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. You needed that, I know, for that day. I'm just here to help however I can. Just here to support men. That's always been my sole mission.
That's the only reason you exist, is my understanding.
Why are you laughing? I'm not funny. Women can't be funny.
Can they, though, on their own without me setting you up? Can you be funny?
If a woman tells a joke and there are no men to hear it, no.
I like the Post-it note idea. What are your vibes? What are your feelings? What are you hearing about your state right now in terms of trouble areas? I hear things about Pittsburgh. I hear things about Philly. I hear things about suburban folk.
It's terrifying. It is actually terrifying. And I just spent like over a week in Seattle, which was amazing. It was like incredible to be in a city and walk around and just go into spaces and you felt like the default was people mentally and politically like you. That was so amazing. And then to come back here and be like, I don't trust any of you motherfuckers. Like, it's real rough. And my kids are doing travel soccer. So I have lots of reasons to drive, even from where I am, like an hour in every direction all around. And it is just like, it's just Trump country. It's just Trump signs. It's massive, huge Trump flags. It's like really intense and overwhelming. And I don't know, maybe I didn't notice it as much, but it's like, it feels even worse than 2016. So that's frightening. However, at the same time, I do feel that like a lot more people understand what's at stake. I know there have been some people who voted Trump in 2016 who are like, okay, nah, I'm not doing that again. So that's nice to know. And I don't know how much, honestly, I'm falling for the propaganda that the Trump campaign, aided by Elon Musk, is putting out, because they are trying very hard to push a lot of like really bullshitty polls. And they're really trying to make it seem like a Trump win is inevitable, because they want to set it up that if Harris wins, they'll be able to say, oh, it's because they cheated. We have to take this by force. Like, they're trying to set up a situation where they can contest a loss because they've set the stage that we expect Trump in some way to win or be really close to winning. And I don't know how much that's working on me. I think it is working on me a little bit, like that maybe it's not as close as I'm being led to believe it is, but I definitely feel scared all the time.
Yeah, fair enough. Elon Musk, what do you make of his efforts? He's turned out to be extremely impactful and influential, and now trying to buy votes, which should be illegal, I think. It is illegal, but I don't see anybody preventing it or pressing charges from the Department of Justice or the FEC or whoever would be in charge of such a thing.
Yeah, he's a piece of shit. He's always been a piece of shit. We always knew he was a right-wing piece of shit. He's a fucking neo-Nazi. He's a terrible fucking person. And he's always been a terrible person. No big surprises there. I don't know. For him, I'm just like, he's so fucking stupid and hateful and hateable. I don't know, man. He's just, something's going to happen to him bad, and I just can't wait for it. That's all. That's all I feel about him.
I hope he gets hit by one of his own vehicles.
It would be great. I don't care I don't know, taken out by a drone strike of something he thinks is important to develop, whatever, blows up in his own rocket. I don't care, but I can't wait.
All that said, and you just got yourself a Tesla truck, which I never saw you purchasing. I'm surprised at you.
I just needed a dumpster and I got confused.
They're so ugly.
They're the most unbelievably ugly thing, which I was shocked. That was the other thing. Being in Seattle, I thought I was going to see a bunch of them, and I didn't see a single one, which was fascinating to me.
It's interesting what you said about the kind of the energy and the feeling of security or safety or whatever word you want to describe. Maybe those are a little too much. Being in a place like Seattle and then coming back to Harrisburg and the surrounding areas, because it just begs the question about the way forward. I live in this town where it's mostly very conservative, like MAGA, Trumpers, and they all know who I am, so it's not great. And I don't feel good. I don't feel safe in one part of town as I do in another part of town. I don't love going out. I'm afraid somebody's going to say something to me. And
you don't love going out because you're afraid you're going to get into a fight that you start because, like, you can't hold back. Is this where we're going?
It just happened.
Okay. But that's different than not feeling safe because you think that you are going to be targeted as a person of color walking into a place where like they could get jumped. Or
as
the police
a person of color, I want to say.
I'm just saying. I think I'm not trying to disrespect your feeling of safety or not safety. No, I actually totally am. Why did I start like that? I was trying to be nice to you. It was so weird.
No, because you know me and you know my emotional issues, and you know that I pick fights.
I do.
All the time. But that's because I can't stand the idea of anybody voting for a rapist. So that's why I want to go back to. I did this debate recently with this other comedian. I wish you had done it. Had helped me. I should have asked you to help me on it. I don't know if it would have made any difference, because I just want to start every conversation with, he's a rapist. He credibly assaulted dozens of women. And I want to go back to the Access Hollywood tape and play it for everybody. After the inauguration of Trump in 2017, I was there in the streets in the Women's March, and it was packed with very angry women. I don't think that subsided, but sometimes it makes me think that people don't know how terrible this man is. Before you get to anything, just the rape and sexual assault, can we just start and end there with this guy?
Is a really, I hate saying this out loud. I had a conversation. This was not political in any way. I was talking about a person that I knew who I was no longer in contact with and didn't want to speak to ever again. And a family member was like, "Oh, I liked him. Why?" And I was like, first of all, he's I don't remember exactly what I said. It wasn't rapist fully, but I'm like, it's the sexual assault or something like that. And this family member was like, "Oh, come on. Everyone's been accused of sex." It was like that. They just brushed it off. Oh, that's the worst thing you're saying about him. It was shocking, and it stuck with me. But that, I think there's a huge amount of that kind of attitude in the world
that
right
was
now.
A reaction from a woman?
No, it was a man.
Well, now I understand.
But it was deeply dismissive of that, even as a concern. Oh, you're going to write someone off because, they were accused of sexual assault? Bleh. Who cares about that? Okay. All right. I get it. So, yeah, I understand where you're coming from. Unfortunately, I don't think it's quite as persuasive this time. All right. We did it. Persuasive as we'd want it to be.
Why not?
Why not? Lots of reasons, Pete. That was sincere. That was like a little kid. Mommy, why not? Because the world is full of horrors. Yeah. And we hate women. So that's a good part of it. Women are evil succubuses out to destroy men's lives. So, of course, sexual assault isn't really a thing. It's just something that the feminists have made up to bring men down. There is a lot of pushback, though, to the whole Me Too movement, I think, and this sort of sense of, so I can't do anything now. I can't even talk to that kind of a bullshit attitude. And additionally, sorry, but I was reading something as well. If you are a man between the ages, or a boy for that matter, between the ages of 13 and 30, and you have any traditionally male hobbies, you are getting pummeled by the Andrew Tate, the conservative right pipeline. They are so hyper targeted to video games that boys like, to sports podcasts and chat rooms, and just anything that would be a traditional male hobby for 13 to 30-year-olds is getting absolutely nonstop bombarded with this type of messaging. And even if you're getting a lot of positive reinforcement on the other end, it's hard to withstand all of that all the time. So
you think about that? You worry about that with your sons?
Oh, God, yeah, absolutely.
Have you seen them being targeted on video games or elsewhere? What does it look like? Is it age appropriate targeting? Oh, I don't know. Because I know exactly what you're saying. I've talked with a lot of experts about how young men or people get radicalized into any belief about anything, frankly. But it's easy to see how that is happening to young men. And I've read Richard Reeves and Ruth Whitman's new book about boys and men, and it's terrifying and it's important to discuss.
It's tough. My kids play Roblox, and I recently read a whole thing of multiple people being like, what's the one thing you would not let your boy do? And it's play Roblox. I'm like, fuck. And I was reading a couple of things this woman was even saying, I play Roblox with my son. And it's one of these, there's so many different games, and people can create their own sort of games and put them up there. And so you can wander into all these spaces. And this woman was saying we play all these normal traditional kind of games, but then we went into one, and the whole point was shooting and murdering women. It was just targets were women, and it was just a sort of incel misogynist game, but it was just out there like any of the others. And I guess the right thing to do would be to ban my kids from playing Roblox, but I haven't done that. I don't plan to do it. And I also don't fully know if it is the right thing to do, because they're going to encounter these things in places and ways I can't control. Right. I don't think that just controlling what your kids take in is always going to be the best way to deal. So instead, I just sit them down every so often. I read this article and I'm like, hey, let's talk more about these games that you're playing, because here's a type of game that I've heard exists on this platform. And let's talk about why that's not okay. And I want you to feel free to tell me if you're encountering this type of content or content that's targeting any particular group of people. Let's discuss that. Let me know what you're seeing. And I talked to them a lot about how there is a huge movement and their entire goal is to get them, is to get my kids, is to get your kids, but is to get boys, right? Like they want to influence the way that they think about the world. And I try to have that kind of conversation regularly. Why do they want that? What is their end goal? What are they trying to do? Because additionally, even if somehow, and I don't in any way think, I've figured it all out and I'm the magical parent who's going to avoid these things. I have no idea. I think this will flip on a dime at any moment. I'm terrified. But let's say I somehow magically am able to navigate my kids through all of this and keep them from falling down any one of these pits. They're going to have friends who go down them. Like they're going to know people. Yeah. So it's not just about like somehow putting them in a bubble and seeing them through to adulthood. It's also trying to give them the skill set so that they can deal with this when they encounter it, because they're going to without question.
I think one of the most important lessons I learned as a parent is that keeping the pathways of communication open is really hard. If you come down on them with, you can't do that, you can't do, they stop telling you about the things they're seeing, they're learning, they feel intimidated talking to you. And there's a lot of counterintuitive things in parenting about letting your kids do a thing or not do a thing because it might shut down the one conversation you'd have with them. So keeping the trust and keeping the comfort, their comfort level in coming to you is a very delicate, important situation that people need to be careful about. And I think too many parents just come down on their kids and punish them or say yes or no and don't do that again. And then they lose that connection with their kids because their kids are too intimidated and scared. But you do have to explain. You told me your younger son was playing Roblox and built a swastika and then screamed done. How do you explain that? And what did you do? You probably want to come down on him.
I think it's important to see both sides, Pete.
Both sides.
It was right after Hebrew school. He's just exploring his options.
If I were like you and I had like maybe a friend or family member or a neighbor, somebody I knew that was a Trump or whatever, I feel like I would never give up trying to convince them. Do you just stop? It's wasting time. It's ruining your relationship, whatever's left of. Is there anybody like that? Do you ever feel that way, especially in a state like yours where every vote seems to matter? I got to get this person.
It's so tricky. I think that is probably the right way for most people to go. I'm not good at that. I'm actually not good at continually having conversations like that with people. And I know that about myself because it's real hard for me to pull back the emotion. And I feel like I get too invested and angry and upset and and I'm therefore then not persuasive, using this word a lot, because I just start to I just sound like an emotional crazy person and they're able to dismiss me much easier. Having learned that, and I can do it with strangers, but I have a harder time doing it with people that I have any sort of like emotional investment in. So I've gone a completely different route. I don't know anyone who's a Trumper. If that is, you have made the choice. Your choice is that you don't give a shit about me. So we're done. It's nope, I'm sorry. You've made it clear that you don't care about my family because you are supporting someone who actively harms all the people that I care about. Therefore, you are no longer allowed in my life. That's the route that I've had to take.
I like that. And I think it's fair. What about the Harris campaign? How do you think they're doing? There's this argument I'm seeing playing out that they're catering too much to Republicans or former Republicans campaigning with Liz Cheney and others versus trying to win over progressives. I don't agree with that at all. The people, I have no patience for the people who are on the fence. I knew about the plight of the Palestinians when a lot of these young college students were not even born yet. I care deeply about that war. It's horrifying, but I just have no patience for people that way. I'm not saying I know where the right strategy is, but I think where the votes are probably like if you're a progressive or Democrat or liberal and you're thinking of not voting for her because of this or that, that's where my patience starts and ends. Talk me down if you can.
No, I think that's fair. And I think that I have seen enough calls from very progressive individuals who are most likely in the direct line of any sort of fire or assault that if the Trump campaign were to be in office, these are going to be the first people that are going to be most affected, whether it be the transgender community or first generation Americans or individuals. They're really directly being targeted and threatened. And if you're a progressive and you claim to care about people and you are not willing to hear out these communities that are facing these threats and go, okay, this is what they need me to do. They need me to vote for Harris and then push like hell again. And I know we're sick of it, right? We're sick of being told like, oh, just suck it up and vote. And then you have to push really hard after. But that's, unfortunately, that is the system in which we live. Like it sucks and it's going to be annoying, but it's probably going to be that way forever. Because you're not going to suddenly elect someone in office who's going to be able to fully transform the government in the way you want, even if they hold all of your same ideals, just because of the way our government is structured. Just having a crazy left progressive in office as president doesn't guarantee that we all suddenly have universal health care, like when the college is free. That's not how that actually goes down. That's not how laws are made. Like we don't have to go back to Schoolhouse Rock, but like we do. And it's frustrating when people feel like they need to get really hung up on some sort of individual ideal and in doing so create harm for whole communities that they, pretend, or claim to care about.
Yeah. Yeah. Very well said. Love that. Do you think there's anything that is going to change anybody based on a gaffe, a mistake, a thing said, a policy proposal, a commercial? We can talk about what we have already, how to get the vote out and why that matters. But is there anything that happens in the news? Is there an October surprise?
I know. I was going to say, I feel like you're really like pushing it here because we have less than 10 days left in October?
I feel like everybody who said that Trump was going to be increasingly crazy was right. We're seeing all of his horrific commentary and behavior and everything that he's saying is exactly what people predicted would happen. And so we're going to see more of that, but it doesn't seem to have changed anybody. Sometimes I feel like maybe if I'm a huge Trumper and I went to his rally and I watched him or anybody just bomb for 90 minutes or be very low energy the way he is, I almost wonder if somebody who's even a big Trumper could be like, this guy, he's too old and tired. I'm not even going to vote. Screw her, but I'm not even voting. Does anybody get turned off by his very low energy and very old, erratic behavior? I doubt it.
No, I don't think so. Occasionally you'll see interviews with these people. I forget where he did the thing where he bussed people in. This was a couple weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago or something, and then didn't pay the buses to bus people back out.
Yeah,
people were just stranded. Yeah, you saw interviews with people just being like, this fucking sucks and this is really bad. Yeah. But I wasn't seeing, and therefore, No,
they blamed the local bus because they hated them. Like the bus people hated Trumpers. That they stranded us. Donald Trump would never strand us. He also hasn't paid like 7 cities that he's been to.
No, he doesn't pay anyone. I can't believe anyone from a capitalistic perspective would ever do business with him. It's so bizarre to me.
Yeah, exactly.
But I guess there's this expectation that like, they'll see that I worked with Trump and then that will bring me customers. Like it does seem to be for exposure. Like he's promising them exposure and they're buying in because they're very stupid and they haven't spent a long time realizing that's not a good deal. Exposure doesn't work.
How are we going to get through the next 13 days?
Drunk, maybe? I don't know. What are you doing? I got a lot here if anyone wants to come over. I got like 6 bottles of stuff. I'm well prepared.
If I do come out there, what will we do? Will we knock on doors? What can we do? What can I do?
Yeah, I just signed up for some door knocking this Saturday morning, even though I'm tired and I don't want to get up early, but I'm going to. And then, both the next 2 weekends, I've got some door knocking happening. There's plenty to go around if you want to come do that.
All right. Reach out to Maura if you want to go to Pennsylvania and me as well. I'll put you in contact with all kinds of people. Okay, I'll let you go. This is awesome. We got to do it again soon. I'm sorry. I've been
a terrible person who ignores me all the time. Yeah, it's okay. It's fine, Pete.
I've been a terrible person who's ignoring you.
Yeah, no, whatever. I don't mind.
Fix it.
I'll just sit here in my passive aggression.
Thank you so much for doing this. As always, you're the greatest.
Thanks.
All right, Maura Quint, there she goes. Go say hi to her on Blue Sky and on Instagram and on TikTok and all the rest. So good every time she joins us. I always learn a lot from her perspective, her ideas, her jokes. Always great. Love her. And let her know that you do as well. I'll see you at tonight's Hangout, Thursdays, 8 p.m. It's tonight. Can't wait to see you there. And I'll talk to you tomorrow, of course, right here. Thank you for your support. Can't do it without you, bumblebees. listening all the way to the end. Jon Carroll taking us in, taking us out. Go support him at joncarroll.org. Talk to you later.
When you're tired of begging, saying pretty please, that's the time you gotta finally get up off of your knees. When you can't see the forest for the burning trees, you got to stand up. Hey, you've been sitting so long, you got the creaky knees, you got to stand up. Stand up. I think you're driving wheels with leaking grease. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Well, there's a whole lot more of us who know what's right. They'll keep right on ignoring us if we keep sitting tight. You got to open up the window to let in some light. You got to stand up. That's right. You got to rise up. You got to stand up. You got to stare the devil straight in the eye. We got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear when all you hear is a lie. So get up off of your butt, get down off of your fence. Even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense. And you stand up. Stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up. Stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. She's the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up. Stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up. They had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. All right, we got to speak up, we got to reach up and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up and show obedience to the voice inside. And listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up.